I had been in Tonga for about 6 months and I had about another month to go. In a lot of ways, Tonga was my favorite place in the South Pacific. Fiji was pretty nice too. That was my next destination, but I had some unfortunate events happen to me there, which kind of detracted from it. But Tonga was just such a sweet place. It had great diving, the sailing was excellent, the people were pretty friendly, and I just really seemed to have a great time there. I had some visitors also. Uh, One of those was Linda Corey, and she was from New Zealand. She had been living in England at the time, and she had some friends who were on vacation in Tonga. So I had met Linda in Aitutaki, and she decided to come out, and so we spent a little bit of time there together. Linda was actually quite a good sailor. She had been sailing with her New Zealand friends before, and so she was right at home on the boat. We spent about I'd say a week cruising around, and as I said, she knew how to sail, and she was very good, especially with cooking and just taking care of things on the boat. And we had some great times together. So Linda accompanied me, and we went out first to the south and then to the north. As I said, she was really good in the galley. She did some baking and she made some really nice desserts there. And it was just really nice. I still have some of the things on my boat that she brought when she came from England. So we went to a small island nearby to begin with, and there were children there. There's always a lot of children to follow you around and to talk to. So that was quite nice. The scenery was beautiful as usual. These kids had these American flags. I think one of their relatives had been in, did something with the U.S. military, so they just had these flags. It wasn't especially for me or anything. They were just waving them. I think they were at a cemetery when we met them. So we went to a nearby island and called Lape. And Lape's got some very nice snorkeling all around there. So we actually had some kayaks that the people where I had been staying at the art museum lent us. And so we took those kayaks out and we paddled around Tonga a little bit and did some snorkeling. Now Linda, this is Linda here, I was a little bit overprotective, I think, with her, because I'd never been snorkeling with her, but she was very good, and it was a little wavy that day, so but she did fine. And here you see I'm free diving with the GoPro. This is a school of surgeonfish, just following them along. The coral growth was quite nice at this place. I think it's called the Coral Gardens, which there's a million places called Coral Gardens, but this one was quite nice. And so we continued on from Lape and we went to a place called Hunga. And this cave, we actually just found this. I didn't know it was there, but it was quite nice. You could go inside of it and just kind of look out at the scenery outside. And Tonga has a lot of these caves because it's primarily limestone, and so you get a lot of caves below and above the surface. So we took the kayaks to a little beach nearby, and you can see they're joined by a rope. It turned out that it was a pretty strong current, so I sort of assisted Linda on her kayak a little bit by pulling. And so we spent a little time on that beach, walked around a little bit. Here you see the rope joining the kayaks. This is a little pass between what's called Blue Lagoon and the main lagoon. The main town in Hunga, this is the island of Hunga, that's where the church is. And there's a store there. It's not a very big place, but we walked around. We went to the church and listened to them singing and talked to these little girls here. They're very cute. And just kind of explored Hunga. It was nice to have the dinghy there and just to be able to go on little side trips. But finally, it was time to leave. This shows the two passes into Hunga. The one on the left is the one that you enter. It's pretty narrow. It's only about 20 feet wide. This is the road leading down to the bay. So we went back. We went back to Niafu because Linda was going to go back to England. And so you can see it's a little bit rougher outside. This is also where sometimes you see humpback whales cruising back and forth. And this little pinnacle here, I actually went free diving on that, and it's pretty nice. It's sort of the landmark for going into the bay at Vavau. So I said goodbye to Linda. I was sorry to see her go, but we had a little snack and coffee before she left. And it was very nice having a guest once again. But I had a couple other people visit me right after that. A French couple that I had met when I was down in New Zealand, and that was Laura and Tom, and they were great. They came out from New Zealand and visited me, and they did some snorkeling with me. It was, again, it's always great to have company. They were going to accompany me on my trip to Fiji, and it was the first time that I had any guests on my boat for a long time. So one day I went out and I collected these oysters. They were attached to the rocks, the rock wall, and were really good to eat. You kind of saute them in wine. And one of them actually had a pearl in it. I still have the pearl on my boat, and not a very nice pearl, but I was cleaning these oysters out in the sink, and something dropped, and I looked at it, and sure enough, it was a pearl. But as I said, they're quite nice to eat. Now, Tom's birthday was coming up, and so we wanted to do something kind of special for his birthday. So we went back to Point Morel, where Swallow's Cave is, and I've shown some videos of Swallow's Cave, but we went there with a dinghy. We went inside this time. We brought some beers for his birthday, Fiji bitter, of course, and that was kind of a nice way to just enjoy the day inside there, and we did some snorkeling, and it's just a really nice place to relax. So it was about time to set off for Fiji. And here Laura's looking at a book. It's actually a French translation of boat terms, so you can learn how to say anchor or sail or mast in French. So of course she knew French because they're French. The last thing I saw of Tonga is this island, and it's actually an active volcano. And it's been active in the last 100 years at least. So that was Tonga. That's the last time I saw of it. I wish I could go back someday. On the way, we caught some fish. We were trolling. This wahoo is about 4.5 feet long. I caught it in the morning. Just looked up and the line had something on it, so I pulled it in. And that fed us for quite a few days. It took 4 days to get from Tonga to Fiji, so we had a lot of fresh fish along the way. This is Tom is in the background there. He just woke up, so he was kind of drowsy, was surprised to see a fish laying on the side of the boat. So this is a picture of the Lau group. It's actually part of Fiji, but it's between Fiji and Tonga. It's the first land you see, but you're not allowed to stop there until you check in with the Fijian government, so you can't really get off. But it's such a beautiful place that I eventually returned to the Lau group. And the Lau group has, it's kind of a mixture of Tongan and Fijian culture, and the language has parts of both. So finally, we arrived at Fiji proper, and this is the south coast of Fiji, of Vanuatu, and we're heading for a place called Savu Savu, and it's a very sheltered harbor, and here we are just getting ready to go into Savu Savu, and my crew had been really great. As I said, this was the only time for about 4 years that I had any crew on the boat, and it was quite welcome. You know, they were very good, and so they were going to get off in Fiji, but first we went into the harbor. This is Savu Savu. It's like a very long, winding bay and very protected. It's supposed to be a great hurricane hole, but as you'll find out, a hurricane or a cyclone actually went over Savu Savu, and it wasn't that sheltered. So, but here you can see it's very, very calm. Laura met some of the young Fijians right there at the dock. We rented a car and drove around the island before they left. And that was nice to see the interior of Fiji and to meet some of the people. You can see it's really scenic. And so we were looking for something, some place, and got lost. And these people invited us into their house, and they gave us a little bit of food. The Fijians love to entertain people and just to share things. And they actually gave Tom and Laura some kava, which was nice. We traveled around. We saw the south side of the island. We did some snorkeling there. You can see the water's beautiful. And ended up on a beach on the furthest eastern point of that island. So it was a nice way to see the island. But eventually we returned to Savu Savu and spent a couple more days before Laura and Tom left. They went to another island and spent a little time. But I wanted to go back to the Lao group, so I got in my boat and I started to go back. Unfortunately, it's against the wind to get back, but it was pretty good weather. So this is Vanuatu in the Lao group in the distance there, and here I am coming up on it. It's a really, I keep saying this, but it's such a beautiful place, and hardly anyone goes there because it is difficult to get to, so a lot of people never see it. But I'm glad that I made the trip. It was very memorable. Now, as I came into the town of Malacca, this is the fisheries building right here. These buildings, and I met someone there, and he was the head of fisheries. His name is Sony. This is the town of Malacca, a really pretty place. I don't know how many houses, but apparently Sony built most of them himself. This is Sony. And he's a really amazing guy, lots of talents, a lot of energy. He did pretty much everything. This is his wife, this is Jonah. And this is the main town of Malacca. The children playing soccer. You can see the church there right in the center. Church is the center of the town. Here's the church. And these things are slit gongs. That's how the Fijians call people to church or to summon people, and that's Sony. So the first thing I had to do is a sort of a ceremony where you present kava in that black plastic bag. You're supposed to buy kava and present it to the village elder, and it's a tradition that's always adhered to. Now here I'm wearing, and you had to wear this type of dress, which is called a sulu, and all Fijian males wear this. It goes back to missionary times, but now it's considered part of the national culture. Walking around Malacca, of course, is very small. Everybody knew each other. These are all friends of Sony. Here's Jonah and their son. There's Sony and his brother. And Sony, as I said, was a very good fisherman. We went out spearfishing, and he got a lot more fish than I did. There's some coral trout in there, but he did all kinds of fishing. He did trolling as well, where you go out and drag a lure. So here he is coming back from a trip with some tuna and jack. And he was also, as I said, part of the fisheries department. So he would buy fish. They had a co-op there, and here's the co-op. Now, Sony didn't catch all these fish, but it was impressive that they would get this amount of fish, and people would just come down and buy their fish and take it home with them. So I did a little trip to the coastline. You can see it's a very scenic coastline. The pictures kind of don't do justice to this place. You really have to experience to see it to appreciate it fully. Now, coming back, I ran into Sony. He had just cut all this lumber with a chainsaw, and I didn't even know that was possible, but he did it pretty much himself. So I helped him carry some of it down. Sony carried about 2 boards for every one I carried, but he stacks them, and then he starts building these structures. And I took some pictures of the process. This is his house, and these leaves are what they put on the roof. There's thatching, and this is Sony's house, which he built himself out of logs that he cut himself. Unfortunately, the typhoon that hit Fiji while I was there devastated Vanubelevu, and most of these houses are gone now. So here's the thatching on the roof, and you can see the work that goes into it. So while I was there, they had a couple of feasts. This is a traditional thing to do when somebody's leaving or a birthday. This was actually a going away party for one of the fisheries people. So everybody would sit down, and of course they would say grace beforehand, and just eat whatever's there, shellfish or fish. Here you see the duck. Stoney really liked this duck, and he would call it, and the duck would just walk around the table and beg for scraps and things like that. Now here they're processing something called cassava. It's a root. It's the same plant that they make tapioca out of. They also roasted a pig while I was there. This is a young pig, and so I watched how they did that. One of the first things they do is to boil it and then remove the hair. That's what they're doing here, cleaning it and removing the hair. And then they place it on a spit, basically just a pole, and that pole is then put over a fire, and it's turned constantly. Here they're applying some sort of butter or something to it, and so they rotate this. I don't know, probably 2 or 3 hours they were doing it, and so they would take turns. There's a crank on the end of it, and eventually, the pig was done. The women, meanwhile, were cutting up things like this pumpkin or gourd. Here, Sony is preparing, it's sort of like poi. It's in Hawaii, they take taro and they pound it. They call it pounding poi. It has a different name in Fiji, but it's essentially the same thing. Yeah, beat it. Okay, that was me. Yeah, so then we sat down, and we would just all partake of the meal, and very nice. So one day we went to visit Sony's relative on another island. That's my boat in the background. Sony's driving. He's also an experienced, very competent outboard mechanic. Like I said, he did pretty much everything. So here's the other village, and it's kind of similar to to Malacca. Here's Jonah and her sister and her son, some of her children, and well, they're all relatives. And there's the man himself. I think they had just come back from church. Now this is the school that Sony's children went to, and you can see that's the Fijian flag. And so I got to go inside the classrooms. Here are the children. I think they only had a few classrooms. This is the computer lab, so they had a couple of laptops and some tablets. Here are the children, and that dog was kind of the school mascot. It kind of followed the kids around all the time. I think it even went into the classrooms with them. Some more of the townspeople. These people are preparing and eating a type of shellfish there, like a small bivalve or clam. Here are a bunch of the kids in the village. They found this old mini trampoline, and they were all trying to see how many people they could get onto it, I guess. So it was getting time. I had to leave Vanuatu. I really wished I could have stayed there longer. I really wish I had, although the place was absolutely devastated by the cyclone that would go through that area in about 3 months. So I'm going to continue. The next video will be about Fiji as well. So if you like this video, I hope you'll keep watching them, and please share and subscribe.